rewrite the expression so that it is not in fractional form. So that just means we want to change the way this looks, but our answer is not going to be a big fraction like this one is. Okay, so kind of the mathematical trick to fix that is to multiply the top and the bottom by something called the conjugate. Conjugate, it looks very similar, but the one big difference, and this came up with several people that I've been going around and helping them at their desk, conjugate changes this middle sign. Instead of a plus, you need this to be a minus. The conjugate of tangent plus secant is tangent minus secant. Now, that's probably not the first thing on your list, but as you guys get to higher and higher mathematics, conjugates become more and more important. So if we did that, we get 5 times tangent x minus secant x. So the numerator is pretty easy to deal with. The denominator, these two terms times these two terms, you need to FOIL. So you get tangent squared. And the reason why we want these signs to be different is the next two part of FOIL. This would be minus secant x tangent x, and then a plus secant x tangent x, and then the last part of FOIL. If you multiply something by its conjugate, the outer and inner part of FOIL, those will always be equal but opposite, and those always cancel out. So that's why we multiply by the conjugate and not just some other thing. Okay, so we get this. Down here we get that. The denominator looks like it might be part of one of the Pythagorean identities. So again, I would have just wrote this down on my page once so that I could just look at it and refer to it all the time. But I don't have that up here, so first one you have to memorize. Second one, divide them all by sine squared. Third one, divide them all by cosine squared. And sure enough, tangent squared minus secant squared is a form of this. So we need to manipulate this so that it says tangent squared minus secant squared equals something, so that I can plug that something in over here. So to do that, we would need to subtract the secant squared over, and then subtract the 1 over. So that whole denominator becomes -1. And again, our whole point of this was to try to write this not as a fraction, not in fractional form. So minus signs on fractions, as you guys know, or should know, you can write a negative like any of these ways, whether your negatives in the numerator, the denominator, or out front. That all means the same thing. So I can choose to put this negative up top. And then of course anything over 1, you don't have to write it over 1. And then that's how it becomes not in fractional form. So you're not going to know how to just write it in not fractional form. You're going to have to start some way. There's going to be some identities in there. A lot of these questions have some factoring. I guess this one doesn't. But some of these questions you need to multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the denominator. That's just the math trick that makes that work out that way. Okay. Was there anything else in there, Dylan? No?